One of the things you always got to do when you roll into town, I've already done it once this week, but we got to have plenty to eat when it's hot. I think this week's supposed to be really hot. You know, it's almost like tackle is less important for me than groceries. If I can't eat, I don't eat well, I don't concentrate well, so I spend a lot of time figuring out what I'm going to eat for the week while I'm on the lake. That gives me energy to stay out there all day long. This video that you're about to watch right now is actually the Bassmaster Northern Open that I just fished. It's actually the Eastern Opens on Lake Norman. I was kind of torn on between if I was going to post this video up or not. I was like, it's kind of a little squirrely, didn't really have an intro, not an outro. Be honest with you, I was a little slack on covering this content, but I was like, you know what, maybe there is something that somebody wants to see in this video. But I fished the Bassmaster Northern Opens this year, and the reason I fished them, honestly, I really don't care about the elites. That's one of those things, if I make it, cool. If I don't, well, whatever. I was really more interested in making the classic. They have a championship this year. Top 10 from each division makes the championship. But my biggest motivation for fishing the Bassmaster Eastern Opens this year was the FLW Tour finishes up in June. That's my main priority when I'm fishing tournaments, is the FLW Tour. But it finishes in June, so I don't want to just sit around home from June all the way until January or February, whenever the tour starts up again. So that gives me at least 2 events during the off season to fish. And I just think, especially at my level, I think the more tournaments I fish, I think in the long run, the better tournament fisherman I'm going to be. So really my main motivation in fishing the Eastern Opens is just to get some more tournaments under my belt. Fishing more tournaments is a good way to be a better tournament fisherman, is the way I see it. So you go to Lake Norman, you're going to catch bass. And a lot of places you hear about, you go to them and it's okay. Fishing is okay at best. You hear about like Lake Gunnersville or even like Lake Champlain or a lot of those northern fisheries. You hear about how good they are, and you get there, don't be surprised if you fished around a day or two and don't even get a bite. They're good if you know the correct places to go and find the fish, but if you don't know where to fish or where to go, what end is usually productive, they can actually be kind of hard. Now, Norman's not like that. I promise you, I think Lake Norman has more bass per square acre than any place I've ever been to in my entire life. It has bass after bass. I believe you literally could scoop them out. It's like their bass have taken over Lake Norman. They're just absolutely insane how many fish there is in this lake. But saying that, this tournament was somewhat frustrating because you catch a lot of bass. It's a fairly fisherman friendly lake, but catching a bigger size bass is very frustrating at Lake Norman. A lot of guys get frustrated because there's a lot of small fish. You'll catch small and small and small, and then you'll catch 2.5. That's the game you want to play. That's you're not gonna go back in the dock, dude. Ain't any size at all, but you spread all up under the dock. No, thank you. No. Close. an idea where the fish are on Lake Norman right now, you know, a lot of these fish are post-spawn right now. There's probably a few fish that are feeding on, a few fish that are still on beds, a lot of fry garters, and that's how you can catch some of the bigger fish right now. Believe it or not, the difference in this tournament between catching a pound and a quarter, pound and a half, and catching that 1 3/4, 180, 190, that's a big difference. And that's the key to doing really well in this tournament, is getting that little bit above average fish, a 1 3/4, 2 pound fish. God forbid you get a 3 pounder. That's a real big deal.
They were grabbing and not letting it. I've gotten bit probably 10 times where I couldn't even have a chance to slip the hook. Put me in the money.
A 1 1/4. Yes! 1 1/4. Look at all of them, dude. There's like 4 of them with it. Get it up there. Look at all of them. God, there was a 3 pounder with it. It's a daggone 3 pounder.
Mind if I pitch on them?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you to. Yeah, I mean, I can't catch. Look at them. Look at all those fish. Yeah, dude. It's like a 3 pounder. I catch the little fart knocker.
That's them. They're still playing with it. Come on, eat it.
That one with it. The big one with it. I don't know why the small one's always gonna get it. My approach to this tournament is to really just go through the numbers and play the numbers game. Catch as many fish as I can, and surely after going through 25, 30 keepers a day, I'm thinking surely I should be able to get 5 2-pound bites. You know, when you think of spotted bass, a lot of times you typically think of fishing offshore, 25, 30 foot deep, and there are some fish in that deeper range here at Lake Norman. But I took it upon myself. I decided to stay shallow. That was something that I could directly fish. I know that right now Lake Norman has a tremendous population of brim and panfish, shellcracker, so forth. I think they're actually spawning right now as well. So in my opinion, that keeps a lot of the bigger spotted bass shallow on Lake Norman. It doesn't seem to have a real big population of shad, and seems like the fish feed predominantly on brim, bluegill, shellcracker, that type of deal. So I decided just to fish docks, and I'm just using that Z-Man fatty, just casting it around at the fixed position docks. You know, on one day you might catch a lot of fish on the front ends of the docks. The second day you might catch them on the catwalks going into the docks really shallow. Honestly, on Lake Norman, it doesn't matter. You're liable to catch a fish just about anywhere. And my decision is not to make this a math project. Just put my boat in the water, get in a creek that I really like and that has the habitat that I like to fish, and just go down the bank. All right, folks, so day one is over for me. I caught a lot of fish. Didn't really catch any good fish. I don't think I have a 2-pounder in my bag today. I was catching some fish, some fry garters and so forth, and just going running in the backs of these pockets, and I checked 2 or 3 of them, and then all of them were gone. All out of my fry garters and the fish that were in the backs of the pockets. I don't know if somebody caught them or they left. They're bad about leaving this time of year. But a lot of the fish that were with fry, they were gone. So I kind of lost confidence in that, and I stayed with my shaky head and caught the fire out of them. Caught so many fish it got annoying.
But I probably should have kept moving around with that pop-R. But we got day 2. Day 2 is tomorrow. I'm probably gonna catch me a little quick limit, and then I'm going to run with that pop-R, run the backs of pockets, because the fish are still there. During practice, you could actually see the fish with the fry. Today, you couldn't see them, and that's where I missed it. I had promised myself that I was only going to fish, throw my pop-R at fish that I actually saw, because that's the only time I caught one. So that was my mistake. It changed a little bit today. You couldn't actually see the fish, but they were still there. A lot of the garters, they were still there. You just couldn't physically see them. So we'll come back tomorrow. If we can figure out how to catch 12 or so pounds tomorrow, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 pounds tomorrow, we'll be fine. I just always catch what I can, as much as I can catch. So we'll go weigh in these little ones, gas up, and we're going to run tomorrow. We're going to at least have some fun tomorrow. It was fun today, too. I had fun. Caught a lot of fish.
Best video I can say that you've done that I really like, that somebody had to do it, was the one on sponsorships.
Oh yeah. Everybody's looking for that. It's tough with the kids. You gotta figure out how to tell them to shut up for a minute without being a butthole. No, adults too. The adults are just
oh no, they're
like, dude, you put it.
Because kids are naive.
Right. Yeah, you kind of.
And the adults should know better. They just don't have any manners.
I don't know what it is. It's like, dude, could you just listen? These kids and stuff, they don't know.
On day 2, I go back to my camper on day 2, and I've got to make some decisions like I always do. I weighed in around 9 pounds on the first day, which wasn't really bad. That was a decent start. Really, I could catch 11 or 12, and that's really just one bite. If I could catch 11 or 12 pounds, catch 13, you could slide into the cut. And this was a tournament that I was really feeling really good about, because I knew I could catch keepers, and finding those largemouth fry garters, I was thinking that's how I could get my weight up there a little bit higher. It just didn't work out the way. Every single one of my fry garters was gone. Every single one that I marked. I'm not sure if I got in a bad rotation and somebody caught them in front of me, or especially when it gets hot like this. This is our first couple weeks in the 90s. A lot of times those fish just leave. And once the fry gets to a certain level of maturity, they don't feel the need to protect them anymore, so they're just going about their merry way.
More than that up under there, because I saw
all spotted bass that on the day one. So I've got to make a decision. Do I keep playing this numbers games with just throwing my fatties, keeping it simple, going down the bank, and just hope for one or two above average bites, a 2 pound bite or so forth. Since I didn't have that bad of a day on day one, and just not a killer day, but not a bad day, I just decided to do the same thing on day two. Just keep it simple. I've made a promise to myself this year that I wasn't going to make tournament fishing hard. I was going to make every day simple. I was going to use really simple baits and tactics and ways, just fish like I was just normally fishing at home. That's what I decided to do again on day two.
Because I saw a big one here in practice sunning under that dog. So I'm waiting for them. Sometimes they don't go that far.
My creek, the creek that I like, I did wrestle a couple 2.5, 3 pound fish to the boat in practice, and I went back to some of those spots. I tried to change up a little bit, still throwing the same baits in different places. I tried to maybe target some of the main lake docks for a couple hours.
Smallest bluegill I've got. Caught two the other day that were about 11, 12 inches. Oh, miles or so out of fish rod.
Or is that a couple? I think it was a couple with it. Looked like it anyway, because it looked big at first.
Yeah.
It's not this shallow.
Then I started trying to fish some of the docks that were kind of on points. Maybe that's where the bigger fish, and just my wheels are turning on how I can actually get a bigger size fish. Then I started to fish some of the docks that were kind of more towards the mouths of creeks. Just trying to logically think of where some of the bigger bass could be moving this time of the year. Same thing. 1 pound fish after 1 pound fish after non-keeper after 1 pound fish. The same thing. I keep catching. I could skip under the docks. I could skip over a catwalk. I could fish a point. I could just throw out in the middle of nowhere. Same deal. Same 1 pound fish. So you can imagine it did become frustrating at some point, catching 25, 30, 40, enough fish not to keep count. I hate to be the guy to exaggerate, but it was probably the most fish I ever caught in a day of tournament fishing, but none of them were the right size. Second day, I didn't even weigh near as much as I did on day one. I had a hard time catching pound-and-a-halfers on the day two. So never caught a 2 pound bass the entire tournament. I ended up placing in the 70s, which, like I said, probably doesn't do me really well for the points. I think at the Kissimmee chain, I ended up finishing in the 70s and did the same thing here at Norman in the 70s, points are not going to be looking that great right now. But like I said, there's a bigger objective for me. I want to keep fishing tournaments. I want to fish as many events as I can, so I can put the work in. I can get used to making a day of tournament fishing, and seeing how fish adjust from practice to the tournament, and making those decisions in the tournament is my whole motivation of fishing all these extra events. So you know, fairness, that was not the best event that I've had all year, or in a couple years for a matter of fact. So I know this video is sort of backwards, but this is leading right up to my Kentucky Lake event. So appreciate you guys taking time to watch this video. Out.